Hi, I'm Jack and welcome back to Off the Chain with Jack. In today's video, I've got a brand new pattern for you and I'm going to be showing you how to make this wonderful Autumn Harvest Raglan jumper. I've designed this jumper with a really lovely boxy fit and a mock turtleneck just to give it that cozy vibes as we come out of autumn and head firmly into winter. The pattern is made with double knit wool using a 4 and 4.5mm hook just to give it that lovely thickness without being too chunky and overwhelming. Being a raglan jumper, it's designed from the neck down before you then split for the arms and continue with the body. Because it's worked from the neck down, you're actually able to try it on as you go to get the perfect sizing. However, if you do decide you want to make this pattern for somebody else, there's a full schematic available on my Substack, which is linked below, that covers all the measurements needed from sizes extra small all the way up to 5XL. It is a unisex pattern, so if you do decide to make it for somebody else, one thing I would maybe consider doing is taking a jumper of theirs and using that as a guide, something that you maybe know that they like to wear, something that you know that fits them really well. One thing to note when using the schematic is that the measurements listed are for the finished jumper, not for your body. So don't measure your body and then use the schematic if you're going to do it that way. Maybe look at measuring a garment that you already wear. As I've said, it's made in a double knit wool, and for this one, which I made, which is a size extra large off of the schematic, I ended up using 5.5 balls of 100g wool, so about 550 grams worth of wool. And there's also a chart on my Substack post that scales how much wool you'll need based on what size you're working. One thing to note with that is just if your gauge and tension is a bit different to mine, you might find that you use ever so slightly more or ever so slightly less. I've actually got some wool left over, so I think I might probably make a matching hat and scarf to go with it. As I've said, all that information for the pattern, including the size chart with the schematic and the amount of wool you'll need for each size, is on my Substack, which is linked below. It's completely free to subscribe and see that information. Also, please, if you do really enjoy this pattern, subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments section down below and I'll be sure to try and respond. Without further ado, let's go to the hands at the table so you can make the Autumn Harvest Raglan jumper. So for this pattern, you will need your double knit wool. I'm using this Papataya Batik. I always struggle to say it. And this is, I think, colorway 35. I ordered it on TikTok shop because I really just like the colors and I thought it would stripe up really nicely. You're going to need some scissors, a darning hook for weaving in your ends, a tape measure, which is really important when using the schematic and making this in different sizes, a 4mm hook and a 4.5mm hook. So to start with, we're going to take our 4.5mm hook and we're going to chain 92 stitches. So I'm just going to find the end of my ball. Oh, isn't that lovely and easy right on the top? So I've just done a slip stitch onto my hook and I'm going to chain 92. So I've done my 92 chains, and the head hole is the same for everyone. So we're starting at the top and we're going to work our way down from the neckline. So the head hole is the same for every single person. We all seem to roughly have the same head size and neck hole. So you're going to take your chain of 92, making sure it's not twisted, and we're just going to slip stitch into that first chain that we made. So I'm going to come round and I'm going to slip stitch into my first chain. And this was now going to do our foundation row. So the entire pattern works off of this foundation row. So you can see I've got my lovely V's there on my chain. I'm going to do in this first chain a foundation double crochet, and we're going to build the first corner that we're going to work from. Now this first round is a bit different to the rest of them. We're just going to be building the foundation row that we build the V's off of. So I've looped over, inserted my hook, looped over, and then inserted my hook into that front part of the chain. I'll show you again. I've inserted my hook for this foundation stitch back into that initial chain, yarned over and pulled up a loop and kept it quite loose, yarn over and pull through both of them, insert my hook into that first chain stitch that I just pulled up, just into half of it. There's 2 loops, but you just want one. Yarn over, pull up, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through both, and we've made a foundation double crochet there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain in the next 32 stitches. So I'm just going to do my first one. And as you go across, just make sure you're going into the right part of the chain. So I've done my next one, next chain. So if you want to keep chaining until you've done another 32 stitches, so that's 33, including that first foundation we've done. So you want to make sure you keep going. So if you pause the video here, and I'll catch up with you when we've done all of those double crochets. That's 33, including that foundation double crochet we did. And this is my last one. So I've got 33 altogether, including that foundation stitch. So what we're going to do now is build the first corner that will be one of our seams that runs along the jumper, one of those corner seams that we've seen. So to do that, we're going to do a double crochet into the next chain space, as we've done before. We're going to chain 2, and then we're going to do another double crochet back into that same chain space. It's almost as if we were doing some sort of granny square. So we've just done a 2 chain in the corner, double crochet, 2 chains, and another double crochet. We're now going to continue doing this foundation row to build a side of the jumper. So we've maybe done the front or the back here. We're going to do the side. And for this, we're going to crochet in the next 12 chains. So we're going to do 1, 2, and do 12 double crochets. Pause the video here, and I'll meet you once I've finished my 12, and we'll build the next corner together. And now I am just doing my last one for this side. So now I've got, not including this corner, if we include this corner, we'll have 13. So we're going to skip that corner when we're counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And our corner. We're now going to create another corner in exactly the same way as we did before. So we're going to double crochet in the next chain space. Do 2 chains and then double crochet back into that same chain. And now we have done almost half of our neck hole, sort of. We've got one long side and one short side for a shoulder. So now what we want to do is crochet 32 again all along this side of the chain. So starting in this next chain here, I'm going to do 32. So if you want to do your 32, and I'll meet you and we'll build the next corner together. So I've got one there. So I've now done my 32 extra double crochets. I've done my 32 extra double crochets, get that right, along this side. And we're going to build that next corner together. So I'm going to yarn over, do a double crochet into the next chain, chain 2, and double crochet back into that same chain. And now we're going to do our last 12 double crochets along this edge. So we're going to form another short side. We've got 2 long sides and we're going to form a short one. So if you just want to do those 12 double crochets in the next lot of chains, and I'll meet you back when we're going to form this last corner together. So I'm just doing my last double crochet. And sometimes these last chains where you slip stitch can get a little bit figgly, but just get it in there. You won't notice it at the end once we finish the neckline. I've done my 12 double crochets along here. Now, if you're anything like me and you can't count, I actually was 1 chain short and I'm not undoing all that work. So one thing you can do, and I've done this countless times before, is about halfway down the row, I've just put 2 double crochets into the same chain. You won't notice it at the end, and it makes your life a lot easier than having to undo everything and start again. If you really want to be a perfectionist, undo everything and start again. But I am not that person. So I've got my 12 double crochets. We're now going to form the last corner. So for this one, we're just going to make sure that we're not twisted around, which we were. There we go. So you want to just maybe lay it flat and make sure that you've got your full square. We're going to do a double crochet into our final chain, right back where we started. And then to close up this corner, we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to do a single crochet into the top of our foundation stitch. So we're just going to go straight into that top of that stitch there. Yarn over, pull it through so you get a lovely 2 loops on your hook for it, like you were doing a single crochet. Yarn over and pull through. And then we've closed up that last corner. And as you can see here now, we've got a front, a side, a back, and another side. Well, I mean, the front and the back are interchangeable. It's up to you which way we go around. But I would tend to put my seam at the back, actually. So you've got a back, a front, and 2 sides. So we're now going to start our first row of building the V-stitch, which makes up this jumper. So to do that, we're going to do another foundation double crochet. So we're going to insert our hook, and we're going to do this the same at the start of every round. We're going to yarn over, pull through, insert our hook back into that little stitch we've just created, just into half of it, 1 loop only. Yarn over, pull through, and I've got 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through, and we've done that foundation double crochet. We're now going to do another double crochet into exactly the same space. So that will create an additional V-stitch, because the aim is that obviously we want each round to increase and grow. So we've got to add additional V-stitches in every corner as we move. So for the start of the round, what we're going to do is we're going to go in between our stitches. So we're never actually going to work now on into the top of the stitch to produce our V-stitch. We're going to go into these big gaps in between, which make this quite a nice, easy stitch to follow. So we're going to do 2 double crochets into this first gap between our foundation double crochet of the row below and that first double crochet. So we're going to go insert our hook, yarn over, and do a double crochet. We're then going to do another double crochet in exactly the same space. Now, some people will put a chain in between their V-stitches. I'm not one of those people. I think it just looks tighter like this, and I like it that way. So if you don't like it, don't do the pattern. We're now going to skip this next gap here and put 2 double crochets into the next gap. So we're going to skip a gap and put 2 double crochets in here. We're now going to do exactly the same thing all the way along. So skip the next gap, 2 double crochets in the next gap along. We're going to skip the next gap, 2 double crochets in the next gap along. I feel like you're starting to see the repeat for this row now, maybe. We're going to skip the next gap, 2 double crochets in the next gap along. If you want to keep doing that, and I'll meet you at the other end of this row. So I've got 2 double crochets. Skipping this last gap here into here. And you should find that you've ended up in the stitch just on the corner of the previous row. And we're now going to build our next corner together. So to build our corners, we're going to do a V-stitch, because we've got to increase by another. We've got to increase to make sure that the jumper gets bigger so it fits over our shoulders. So I'm doing 2 double crochets to build another V-stitch. I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm doing 2 more double crochets back into that same chain 2 space of the row below. And then we're just going to repeat what we've done the previous round. So we're going to do 2 double crochets right into the gap here, this first gap. We're going to miss a gap and then we're going to do 2 double crochets in the next gap, and we're going to repeat that until we get to the next corner. So I've done 2 double crochets. I'm going to miss a gap and go into this next gap. I'm going to miss a gap and go into this next gap. So if you want to continue, I will do another corner with you when we get there. So I'm now going into this last gap on my second double crochet, and the colour's starting to change in this wool, which is what I'm excited for. I'm hoping that it'll all do a lovely stripe and it'll make almost lovely zigzags as we go. So we'll see. We're going to do 2 double crochets into this corner like we've done on the previous one. So 1, 2. We're going to chain 2 and then do 2 more double crochets back into that same corner. And then we're going to repeat what we've done before. So we're going to skip this first gap, put 2 double crochets into the next gap, skip the next space between these double crochets and put it in the next one. 2 double crochets in there. So if you want to continue working along the row, do that final corner. So you should have 1 more corner left to do. And what I will do is I will meet you back here to show you how we join that so that we can continue working all the way around. So I'm just finishing off my last pair of double crochets into that final gap. And now, to finish the round, all I'm going to do is close this last corner. So we're going to do 2 double crochets into that last corner space that we created with the round below. We're going to chain 1 like we did on the previous round, and then single crochet into the top of that first foundation double crochet that we did. So it's exactly the same really as the round we did below. It's just instead of the 2 stitches for a corner, we've got 4. And now what we're going to do is repeat exactly how we started the previous round. So we're going to yarn into that, hook into that gap, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops, go through just half of it to create our foundation double crochet. We're then going to double crochet back into that chain space, because again, remember, we want to create, this is creating our increase so that the jumper grows bigger. And then into our round below, we're going to do 2 double crochets in between the 2 that are already there. So we're going to do, help if I yarn over, 1 double crochet and another double crochet. And then we're going to continue working all the way along, placing 2 double crochets in the center of each of our V stitches. So just once you place the first one, the second one's nice and easy. And we're going to place right in the middle, so not in the gaps between the V's, into the center of the V's themselves. I'll do a couple more with you and then I'll show you, and I'll lay it flat so you can see exactly what we're looking for. And then that way, if you're a bit stuck listening to me and watching, this might help. I'll do 1 more and then we'll lay it flat so that you've got a better picture. So, as we can see, this here is my foundation double crochet. This is my double crochet that have built up the first half of that first corner. I've then put 2 double crochets into those 2 extra ones that we did in that first round to build up that first corner. And then I've placed them right in the middle, 2 double crochets in the middle of every single pair of the round below. And we're just going to do that all the way along the rest of this first row. Once you get to the end of this first row, I'll build another corner with you. So if you want to keep going, and I'll meet you at the other corner. So I've gone all the way along, placing 2 double crochets in the center of every single V-stitch down this row that we've done before, all those pairs below. I'm going to place 2 in the extra that we built into the corner of the previous row. And now we're going to build our next corner. So I'm going to do 2 double crochets into that chain 2 space. I'm going to chain 2 and then do 2 more double crochets into exactly that space, that chain 2 space of the corner below. So now we're going to do exactly the same thing as we've done on this first row. We're going to just put 2 double crochets in the center of each of our pairs. And then when we get to this next corner here, we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Work all the way down the other long side, doing the same thing, 2 double crochets in the center of each of our pairs. And then we're going to build another corner, go all the way down this last side. And what I will do is I will meet you back at this final corner here, and I'll show you that join one more time. So if you want to just keep working around, pause the video here if you want while you work, and then I will meet you back around at this final corner to show you how we join. So I'm just now doing my last 2 double crochets into those corner stitches from the row below. And we're going to finish and do this last corner. Now, if you guessed that it is basically done in exactly the same way as every other round, you were correct. So all we're going to do is do 2 double crochets into that last space in that corner there that we created when we did our chain 1 from the round below. And then to close it up, we're going to do our chain 1 and double crochet and single crochet into the top of our foundation double crochet of the row below. And as you can see here, we've essentially now created another round of our lovely, lovely V-stitches. And you can see that we're starting to get essentially a big rectangle. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you something. So as you can see, this is almost our neckline of the jumper. And along the bottom here, this is either the front or the back, and these are the shoulders. So all we're going to do is keep going, making this bigger and bigger and bigger. What I'm going to do is go away and do maybe another 4 or 5 rows, and then I'm going to get my tape measure and show you how to use the schematic to essentially measure to make sure yours is the right size for you or whoever you're making it for. So if you want to go away and do some more rows, and keep watching while I show you how to use it. But I'm going to go away and do a few more rows, and then that way I've got a bit more to show you how we go about making it and measuring it and understanding what size we're making. So I have just carried on crocheting round and round and round in the same way now for a few rounds, just so that you can see the build-up of how the yoke of the jumper works. So if we look, I've now done the foundation row, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows of my V-stitch. And now we're going to take a look at the schematic and how to use it so that you can make sure you're making a good size. So if we look here, there's 3 measurements. You've got an A, a B, and a C. And just a reminder, this is all available for free on Substack. So I'm making an extra large here, so I just want these measurements. So I'm going to take my measurement A, which is the pit to pit, and that's the one we're going to focus on to start with, so that we can make sure essentially your jumper is wide enough to fit the person you're making it for or yourself. So I'm going to do mine, so I want it to be 24 inches from pit to pit. And when we break for the arms, these will be the arms over on the sides, and then this is obviously going to be the bottom. So I'm going to measure from this corner to this corner to see how far off I am of that 24 inches. So I'm going to get my tape measure and measure corner to corner down here. So I can see that mine is about 19 inches and I really want it to be 24 pit to pit. So I'm going to keep going, do a few more rounds, and then I will come back to you and we'll talk about splitting for the body and splitting for the arms. Don't worry too much as well if you find that it's sort of starting to become a bit of, it's starting to bow a little bit maybe, or not bunch up. You can A, do some blocking and that will help when we finish, but also B, when you build out the arms and things like that and start putting decreases in, it sort of will help it build some better shape. So carry on going round and round and round until you reach a desired length. I'm going to keep going and then we will talk about breaking for the arms. So I am now just finishing off my last round, I think, and then I'm gonna measure to see if I'm ready to separate for the arms and the body. So I've just done those last 2 in the corner. I'm going to do my chain 1, and then single crochet into the top again, like we always have done, of that last, or that first stitch, sorry. I'm just going to give myself a long end so that I don't need to worry about keeping my hook in. And now I'm going to take a little look. So I'm going to fold my piece in half so I can see I've got my neck here and I've got the width of it going along here. And I'm going to, oh, my yarn's gone on the floor, but it doesn't matter. And I'm just going to get my tape measure and I'm going to measure. Now I am doing, I think I'm going to aim for doing an extra large just so it's a little bit more roomy because I like that. So I want mine to be, for my A measurement, so the pit to pit here, 24 inches across. So I'm just going to get my tape measure and measure 24 inches and see if it's about right. Oh, and look at that. It's just about bob on, maybe slightly over, but that's fun. You always want to make, if you're unsure, if your tension's a bit funny, make sure that you go slightly over than under. So I've done, including that foundation round, I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 rounds. So if you're doing an extra large, maybe aim for 14 rounds, but if your tension's a bit tighter, it might be more. If you're a bit looser, then it might be one less, but that's sort of what we're looking at. So I've got my measurement there. The next thing I'm actually going to do, and this is something I recommend you doing if you're making it for yourself. If you're making it for someone else, then, and it's a present, then you can't get them to do this, but if they know you're making it, you can probably get them to, is I actually like to just take a couple of scrap bits of wool and feed it through these two corners down here and do the same on the other side and tie them. And then that way you can go and try it on by just popping it over your head. So pop your head through this hole here and pop your arms through the side hole and just make sure it is wide enough so that it fits and you can check you've got room. It will look a bit daft like a crop top, but you know, we work. So I am gonna tie this other corner in and then go and try it on and see how it fits. Okay, so I've done that now and I'm actually really happy with the fit. I think it's gonna be really lovely, like a little bit loose, like I said, a little bit cozy. So we're now going to break for the body. But the first thing we're going to do before that is something that I've only ever heard to as called a German short row. I don't know if that's actually the right term, but I'm going to call it a German short row for the sake of this. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that the back of the jumper is ever so slightly longer than the front of the jumper, so that essentially you end up with a little bit of an overlap like this. And the reason that we want to do that is that if you look at jumpers normally and naturally, the back of the jumper tends to be a little bit higher than the front of the jumper. And so we want to make sure that our jumper essentially does that. So the way that we're going to do that is you don't need to cut off your yarn and fasten off or anything like that. It's really quite nice and simple. So we've done here along my short side, that last short side, I have done my slip stitch, my chain one and my single crochet into that corner. And now all I'm going to do is do those first two stitches like normal. So that foundation double crochet and then double crochet next to it like we would have always done if we were starting a new round. And then we're going to do our 2 double crochets in every single stitch, in every single one of those V stitches all the way along. And once you get down the one side, you're just going to stop and then we're going to turn our work. So I'm going to do my double crochets in the V's all the way down to the other end. I'm going to place those last 2 in that other corner at the other end. And then if you want to pause the video and I'll meet you at the other end. So I'm just coming up to that last corner now. Got 3 more sets of double crochets for those V stitches. So I've done this one. I've got my second to last one going into the V stitch. And then as we did on the other side, I've got the last 2 going into that corner space. And so all we're going to do now is actually turn our work and go work it all the way back down the same way we've come. So I'm going to turn my work. We're not going to do any chains or anything before we turn. And now obviously we're looking at it from the back. So it looks a bit different to every single way we've worked the jumper from now, but don't worry. And all we're going to do is do our foundation double crochet directly into that V-stitch we've just created. So I'm going to just insert my hook straight into that V-stitch and pull up a loop. And again, keep it nice and loose as we have been. Yarn over, pull through, and I've just done that foundation double crochet right into that V-stitch. I'm then going to place my second one straight back into that hole. So I've got a V-stitch there right in the middle of those 2 double crochets. And now I'm going to just place 2 double crochets in every single V-stitch all along the back. So just working all the way back to the corner that we started on. So if you want to do those V-stitches, placing 2 double crochets in between every single V, in the middle of every single V-stitch. And I will meet you at the other end, where we're actually going to turn one final time and work all the way back along. So if you pause the video here, and I'll meet you back at the other corner. And again, I'm just coming up to the end of the row now. I've worked all the way along, and I'm just going to place my last 2 double crochets into the space between that first foundation stitch we did and that first double crochet. And in theory, what you have done now is you have put in 2 additional German short rows. And so what you should find is that if you lie your jumper flat and line up your rows, now the back of your jumper should be ever so slightly higher, just by 2 rows, than the front of your jumper. And this will mean that it just fits a bit better, sits a bit more comfortable on the neckline. And it also just makes your jumper look a bit more professional if it's hanging on a hanger. I've made jumpers before without a German short row, and it's just not as good. So do your German short rows. So now we're actually going to start working our rounds for the body. So for the first round, we're actually going to do exactly what we've just done before. We're going to turn our work without doing any chains or anything like that. We're going to stick our hook straight into the middle of that V-stitch, yarn over, pull up our foundation, yarn over and pull that through, and make our foundation double crochet. And then we're going to yarn over and place our stitch straight back into there to create that first V-stitch. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to work all the way along those German short rows that we've made. And when we get to the corner at the other end here, I'm going to show you how we'll join it to make sure that we close up that armhole and we've got our nice body to be able to work. So if you want to just work those double crochets all the way back along in the right direction that we've been before, and then when we get there, I will show you how we join our jumper. It's really simple. So pause the video here and I'll meet you at that other corner. So I'm just doing now these last couple of double crochets. I've got the last 2 now in between that foundation and the double crochet there. So I've done those last 2. And the way that we're going to join it under the armpit is really, really simple actually. So this whole side, and where we would have maybe considered turning our work and working down it, we're just going to skip it. And I want you to just grab the other corner here. And we're just going to place 2 double crochets in this corner space here. So if we fold the jumper, just so I can show you. So you can see here I've got the neckline and I've got the arm here. I'm just going to skip all the way along here. Make sure that I'm looking at the right side of the work. So you don't want to work into this side here. You want to make sure that you're working in the front of your work, and you can tell because you'll see that the V-stitches follow the same direction as the ones you've just been working, so it works in one big loop. And we're just going to do 2 double crochets straight into that corner space just here. Now this first one, just try and keep your tension really solid, because otherwise you might end up with a bit of a loosey-goosey gap, and no one wants that. And once you've done those first two, you'll see that you've essentially joined that gap. It's there now, it's locked in. And you've got an armhole, the back of your jumper where you've done your German short rows and we've worked those backwards and forwards. And now you're going to work along the front of your jumper all the way to the other corner here, and then we'll join up when we get to the end of the round. So just keep working along, placing your 2 double crochets in between every single set of doubles, so right in the middle of those V stitches as we've been doing all along. And then if you want to pause the video here, and I'll meet you at the end of this round where we'll join it closed, and I'll show you how we can start building the body, going down and down and down. So I'm just finishing up those last few double crochets. I've got 2 in those last ones before, and then the thing to remember here is to place 2 stitches in this corner. So we've got to do that, otherwise our jumper will be uneven. We won't have them on one side and we'll have them on the other. So we're going to place those 2 double crochets in that corner. Oh, I've got to the end of my wall, so it's getting all tangled. And then, again, we're going to skip all this side to create that armhole. And what we're going to do, we're just going to join by making sure you've got your work facing the right way. So with the right side facing you on both of these sides, all you need to do now is slip stitch into the top of that foundation double crochet that we created at the start of this round. So just going to slip stitch into the top. So I know before we've done chains and single crochets and things, but for this, we're just going to slip stitch. And that's it. You've now joined that first round and you closed up the armpits, and we're going to start working the body. So for all of the rounds from here on out, you're going to just slip stitch to close it. But to start the round, what you want to do is we're going to do a foundation double crochet directly into that first one. So we're going to just do yarn in, hook in, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we've got 2 loops, and then do that foundation double crochet there. And then we're going to just do another double crochet into that space. So we've made that first V stitch. And then we're just going to double crochet, placing 2 double crochets in the center of every single V stitch all the way around. And what I'll do is when we get to the other gap for the other armpit, I'll come back to you and I'll just show you what that looks like working those first ones that have closed up the gap, just because it might be a bit fiddly and you might have some queries as to what it looks like. So I'll come back and show you that. So if you pause your video here, work along that first side, and I'll meet you at that first armpit join, and then we can work that together. So I'm just coming up to where we joined the armpit, and as you can see, oh right, perfect. I've now just got the 2 stitches here, the 2 sets of stitches, sorry, I should say, that we did into the to close up the armpit. And so all you're going to do is it's exactly the same as we've been doing all along. I'm just going to work 2 double crochets into this V and 2 double crochets into this V, and then carry along the rest of the round. So I'll do them with you. So I'm going to just do them here. But what you really don't want to be doing is accidentally adding any in. So I've done those first 2. I'm going to do those second 2. And then I'm just going to continue all the way down around until I get back to where I started. And when I get back to where I started, I will join you again and show you how we join, and we'll talk through making the rest of the body. So if you want to just continue down that side, and I'll show you how we make the rest of the body afterwards. So pause the video here and I'll meet you at the other end. So I'm just coming up to the end of this round now, And I've actually only just started my second ball of wool. And I don't know about you, but I just find there's something so satisfying in projects like this about finishing a ball of wool and starting to use the next one. So I'm just doing the last couple, here we go, the last 2 double crochets. And the way that we're going to join it is exactly the same as we did in that first round. So we're going to just slip stitch into the top of that foundation double crochet that we made. And then to start the next round, we're just going to insert our hook straight into the middle of that V-stitch to the left, pull up a loop, and make that foundation double crochet as so, exactly the same as we did in the previous round. And then double crochet to create that first V-stitch. Now, all the rounds work in exactly the same way for the body, but what I will talk you through is measuring the length, because in essence, that's where it can be a bit complicated. So I've got my jumper lay flat here. This is my start of a round at the moment, and it's the gap here is for my armpit. I can see just here that I've created. And this is my neckline, and I've got the front here and the back just slightly higher from those German short rows. So I want my B length, which is the pit to the bottom with outer cuff. So this is the length with outer cuff that you're going to be measuring, to be 14 inches. So the way that I'll do that is I'll take my tape measure, find the armpit, pop it just there and measure. Now I can see that I've basically got 1 inch of crochet done at the moment. So I'm going to keep going until I've got 14 inches total for that length. And so what I'll do is I'll do a bunch more rounds. I'll show you a progress update. But what you want to do is you want to just keep going, keep doing those rounds, making that body. And I will show you a measuring update in a bit so you can see what it sort of looks like. And I'll see you in a second. Okay, so I have actually been working on this now for a couple of days on and off, and you can see that I've made some good progress continuing with the body. Now, I actually placed a stitch marker in the back of the jumper just so that as I was making it and trying it on, I sort of kept forgetting which was the front and the back, and I found that really handy. Now, I'm going to just show you my progress and how I'd measure it. So I've folded it in half just for the sake of fitting it on screen for you guys. So you can see I've got one armhole there and one armhole there, but it actually looks a bit like a big vest if I unfold it. So I'm going to take my tape measure, and remember I am looking at trying to achieve 14 inches from the pit to the bottom, and then I'll add that ribbing and the hem at the bottom. So I'm going to take my tape measure, pop it right up in that pit and measure all the way down to the bottom. Now I can see here I've got about 12 and a half inches. And one thing I am looking at is I'm looking at this and I'm saying, right, how long is one row adding? And I can see that per inch, I'm sort of getting about 2 rows. So I know that with another 1.5 inches, I'm looking at maybe 3 more rounds, and then I'll measure it and see how long it is and try it on. So I just thought I'd show you how I measure as I go along. So I've just completed the last row, I think. I'm just going to measure up now. So I've got my tape measure right on the armpit there, and it goes right down. And yep, I've just got actually just over 14 inches, but I tried it on, and for my body length, it just wanted to be ever so slight. I just felt I wanted it ever so slightly longer. So now that we've completed the lovely body length of our jumper, we're going to actually work on the ribbing at the bottom of the jumper. So when you try it on, you might look at it and go, 14 inches feels a weeny bit short, but do not worry, because we're going to add another couple of inches of ribbing at the bottom. So you will have been using your 4.5mm hook up until this point. However, to give the garment a bit more shape and to sort of just let it cinch in a little bit at the bottom, we're going to do our extra couple of inches of ribbing with a 4mm hook. So we're actually going to size down. So you want to pick up your 4mm hook, and we just continue straight on working in the round. Now, if you've done any of my other patterns that use ribbing, so if you've done the Best Beanie Ever, you might see how this ribbing works. So it just works as front post double crochet and back post double crochet. So the way that we start is we're going to do a foundation front post double crochet, which sounds a lot more confusing than it is. It is the same as a foundation double crochet, but we just work around the post of the stitch. So what you want to do is, looking at this first stitch here, we can see where our foundation stitch is from the row before. We're just going to insert our hook underneath that whole thing. Yarn over, pull up a loop and keep it kind of nice and loose. Yarn over and pull through. So you've now got a nice little single crochet almost. And then you're going to insert your hook just through that front of the 2 loops that you have below. Yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops on your hook. So you've just done a foundation front post double crochet. We're then going to work a back post double crochet around the post of the second half of that V-stitch, a back post double crochet, and then in the next stitch, we're going to just work a front post double crochet. And then in the next stitch, we're going to work a back post double crochet. And so for those back post double crochets, you're going to insert your hook from the back of the garment to the front. So for the front posts, we're going to work in through the front, up through the middle of the V-stitch, and then do a double crochet as normal. And for the back posts, we're going to go in through the middle of the V, yarn over, pull through, and our double crochet as normal. So if you want to just keep working those front post and back post double crochets around the double crochets that make up the V stitches, all the way around your garment, and once you've done 1 row, I will join you again and we'll talk about joining them together and starting the next row. So if you want to just continue with that front post double crochet and a back post double crochet all the way around. So I'm just doing my last front post double crochet, and then all being well, you should finish on a back post double crochet because we're doing 1 front, 1 back, 1 front, 1 back, and every V-stitch is 2 stitches, so it's even. So we're working with an even number, which means that you should finish with a back double crochet no matter what size you've made. So to finish off this first round, all you're going to do is provide a slip stitch into the top of that first front post foundation double crochet, and then all we're going to do is repeat the round exactly the same as we did before. So we're going to do a foundation front post double crochet, keep it nice and loose, and then you're going to do a back post double crochet, and then a front post double crochet, and then a back post double crochet. And you're just going to keep working rounds of these front post double crochet and back post double crochet, slip stitching into that foundation stitch when you get back to the start, and then doing another round. And I normally like to do 2 to 3 inches of ribbing, but it depends what you want. If you want it to be nice and thick and chunky, you can by all means do a wider bit of ribbing. But if you pause the video here and start working on your ribbing, and what I'll do is I'll come back to you and show you the jump when I've finished my ribbing around the bottom, and you can see how much I ended up doing. So I'm just finishing up my last back post double crochet, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first foundation front post, and then I am done with what I've decided is the perfect length for my ribbing. Now you might try it on, or you might look at it and decide to do any different, but if you want to do exactly the same as I have, I've done that first round that was into the V stitches. So I've got my first round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I did 7 rounds in all. And it's worthwhile sometimes, actually, if you want to, making a note of the fact that you did 7 rounds for the ribbing, so that when you come to do the cuffs, you can decide if you want to do the same or a bit less or a bit more. So I've done 7. I'm now going to fasten off my work, because you've now successfully completed the body of your jumper. So I'm going to just do a couple of chains, take my scissors, leave myself a nice long tail to be able to weave in that end easily. There we go. And I've now finished the ribbing and you've finished the body of your jumper. Now, the one thing to really importantly remember is to now put down your 4mm hook, because you don't understand the amount of times I've made that mistake. Put down your 4mm hook, pick back up your 4.5mm hook, and we're going to move on and I'll show you how to build the arms out. So now that we have finished the bottom of our jumper, we're going to move on and start working our sleeves. So we're going to change back to our 4.5mm hook. And the thing that's most important to remember when we start the sleeves is that you want to continue working your V-stitches in the right side so that they're all still moving the same way. So if we look at our little V's on the top, we can see that all of them are at the moment pointing with the pointy end of the V that way. And so what we want to do is continue working around this way, and it will be the opposite for the other sleeve. So you might find that you've just got to check which way you're working. So to start with, I'm actually starting with a fresh ball of wool. I just like to start with a fresh ball of wool for the sleeves, especially for the size I'm making, because I find that I can get a whole sleeve out of almost a full ball of wool, and then I end up with less ends to weave in essentially. So I'm going to just pop a slip knot on my hook, and then because of how it starts, I'm actually going to start my stitches on the back of the jumper. So I'm actually going to flip my jumper over, and we're going to start by placing V-stitches actually into our German short rows that we created. So if we look, we can see that we've got the original corner, then our first short row and our second short row. And so our first set of V-stitches is going to go into this German short row, and we're just going to place it directly through as if we were doing a V-stitch from the top, but we're going to just go in from the side. So I'm going to start by building my foundation double crochet like I normally would. So I've inserted my hook and I've just yarned over and pulled through, and then I'm doing my foundation. So that's my foundation double crochet there. And then now I'm just going to place the second one in to build that extra V-stitch off of where we've put that German short row. And then I'm going to work into the second German short row. So I'm going to place my 2 double crochets to form a V-stitch into that German short row, working into the side of it. And now we can see that we actually are now going to start working into the original V-stitches that we did all the way along. So I'm going to place 2 into the corner because there's a lovely big gap there ready for 2 stitches. That was the corner that we were creating when we did the yoke and the top of the jumper. And then I'm just going to place 2 double crochets like we've been doing all along into the V's the entire way round. So I've just placed 2 double crochets into that first V-stitch. I've got 2 double crochets into the next one. And you're just going to keep working 2 double crochets into every V-stitch until you get almost all the way around. And then if you want to pause the video here, and I'll join you back when we start to get towards this other side, and you can see how we sort of join that first row. So as you can see here, I'm just popping my last 2 double crochets into that final V-stitch. And then remember that we want to place 2 into our original corner as we did in the other side right at the start. Now you might feel like you want to place one into the side of this stitch here, but don't, because what will end up happening is you'll end up with an uneven count. And you can see there that those are the 2 that originally started our body. So what we want to now do is we're just going to do our slip stitch into the top of those first foundation double crochet that we did. And there we go, you've done your first round. And don't worry about this hole here. It might look a bit big, but once you've got it on, you won't notice. And B, we can actually use this end to sort of tighten it up. So now we're going to continue working rounds in the same way that we worked the body of the jumper by just placing a foundation double crochet into the center of that first V-stitch. And then our normal double crochet So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep placing those V-stitches all the way around and slip stitching back into that first one, and then going and working another round until you reach about 7 inches. Now our total sleeve length is 17 inches, and it's actually the same for all the sizes, but we want to do that initial 7 inches as that's what gives us that lovely boxy fit. So all you want to do is, as you're working, lie out your jumper, make a note of where your first round is, grab your tape measure, measure it. I can see that I've got 1/2 inch, so I've still got about 6.5 inches to go until we're going to look at doing any sort of decreasing and shaping for the arm. So just keep working those stitches and that round all the way around, measuring all the time. But the one thing I will note is have a little notebook nearby, or just make a note on your phone and make a tally for every round you do, because what you want to do is make a note of how many rounds that you've done in this normal stitch, in the normal variation, before we start doing the decreases, because then when it comes to doing your second sleeve, you can do exactly the same amount of rounds before you start doing your decreases, and that'll ensure that your sleeves are exactly the same length. So keep working these rounds. Keep slip stitching back into that first foundation double crochet until you get to 7 inches, and I will join you once I've finished those initial 7 inches as well. So I have now finished 16 rounds. I actually placed a stitch marker here so that this is my first round, so that it was a bit easier to count for me as I worked and measured, so I didn't lose count. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 rounds. And that for me measures, there we go, 7 inches. So I'm now ready to start the decreases so that essentially we can give our sleeves some nice shaping. Now the decreases, the way we work those is it's a really lovely simple pattern. All we're going to do is, instead of placing 2 stitches in all of our V-stitches, the first 2 and the last 2 of a decrease round, we're just going to place 1 stitch. So we're going to just place 1 foundation double crochet in that first V-stitch, and then 1 in the second one. We're then going to work all the way around until we get to just 2 V-stitches left. So I'm going to place 2 double crochets like normal to create those V's in every single V-stitch round until I get to those last 2. So if you want to pause the video here, crochet round, and I'll join you for those last 2, and then I'll show you how we work the rest of the way. So I've continued doing my 2 double crochets into each V-stitch to create that other V-stitch on top, and I've just got my 2 left at the end of the round. I can see here where I did my first foundation double, and I can see here where I've done 1 more double, and so now I'm just going to place 1 double crochet into each of these V-stitches. And all we're doing with this decrease round is we're just reducing the round by 2 V-stitches. So there we go, I've done my 2 double crochets, and then as we've done on every other round, I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of that first foundation double crochet that we did. So to start the next round, we're going to do 3 normal rounds, no decreases. So we do 1 decrease round followed by 3 normal rounds. So to start our normal round, and to have turned these 2 lots of V-stitches into 1, all we're going to do is, it's basically like doing a normal round when we start. We're going to act like the foundation double crochet and that first double crochet are our 2 double crochets that would make up a V-stitch normally. And so we're going to start by doing that foundation double crochet into that gap, placing another double crochet into that gap, and then working 2 double crochets as normal into each V-stitch all the way around, like we have done previously. And once you get round to the other side, in between those other 2 double crochets that we did, we're going to just place 2 double crochets, in that gap to make those 2 V-stitches into 1 V-stitch. So if you want to keep going and place your 2 double crochets in every V-stitch all the way around, and I'll meet you round where we're going to do that other V-stitch into that gap to decrease and show how that decrease works, and then we'll carry on. So I've made it all the way back round to near the start where I've got my 2 singular double crochets that I've put in for those V-stitches for my decrease. So as we did at the start, I'm just going to work in between both of them and place 2 double crochets to turn those 2 sets of V-stitch into 1 V-stitch. And then, like normal, like we've always done before, I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of that first foundation double crochet that we do. And then we're going to just work 2 more rounds of our normal V-stitches. So that's V-stitching in every single one all the way around. We're doing no decreases. So if you want to go away and just work 2 more rounds, so that is, we've done 1 decrease round, 1 normal round to make up that decrease and close up the gap. And then now we're going to just do 2 more normal rounds. So if you want to go and do those 2 more normal rounds, come back to me and we'll work 1 more decrease round together, and I'll talk you through how we get to the ideal length for the arms. So I've just finished those 2 more rounds, slip stitching back into that first foundation double crochet that made up that V. And so if we pull it tight, it's probably the easiest way to see it. I've got my decrease round where I've done those singles. I've then got 1, 2, 3 more rounds. So this decrease is a 4-round repeat. And so now we're just going to work another round of decreases. So I'm going to do my foundation double crochet all on its own. We're not going to add that second double crochet. And then I'm going to skip over to the next V-stitch and put my double crochet in there. And then I'm going to continue all the way around, placing my double crochets in all of my V-stitches, doing 2 double crochets in each V-stitch until I get all the way back round to the start, and I'm going to do my 2 double crochets in those V-stitches there to decrease. After that, I work 3 normal rounds, and then I repeat that decrease. So it's 1 decrease round, 3 normal rounds. Now we're going to keep going until one of 2 things happens. Number 1, your sleeve measures 17 inches. So at the moment, I am looking at maybe about 9. So I've got a little chunk of way to go. But if yours reaches 17 inches, you are good. Stop there and we'll look at making the cuff. So keep going until you get 17 inches. Or if you get to 18 V-stitches, so that is 36 stitches all the way around, but you've just got 18 left. And this is particularly if you're working the smaller sizes like the extra small or the small from the schematic. Because your A measurement is less, it means that the space here at the start of the arm is less. So you need to decrease less to get it to the width of a wrist for a nice cuff. So keep going for yourselves if you're doing those smaller sizes until you get 36 stitches or 18 V-stitches all the way around. Once you get to there, measure your sleeve. And if it's for yourself, try it on and obviously see how long it is. But if you're doing it with someone else, just keep going without doing any decrease rows until you get to that 17 inches. So crack on, do your decrease rows, do your normal rows, get to either that 18 V-stitch, 36 total stitches or 17 inches in length. And then I will come back to you and we'll start working on the cuff, and I'll show you how we can make the cuff of our jumpers. So I've been working now to get my sleeve up to that 17 inches in length. Now, I've done 40 rows altogether from the start of the sleeve all the way to where I'm at the moment. And for me, that equals just over 17 stitches. It's about 18 and a half inches actually. And that's because when I did that final decrease round, I just sort of like to finish the pattern. So I did 3 more rows to do 3 more normal rows after that decrease row. And I just like that. I think it's just, in my head, a bit neater. So if you remember correctly, I said that we wanted to continue until we'd got to 17 inches and we wanted 36 stitches in that final round for a cuff, because as you can see at the moment, it's far too wide for a wrist. So we want to try and sort of cinch that in a bit. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to switch to our 4mm hook. And we're going to essentially just drop some stitches to make up that 36 inches. Now, if you've done a similar size to me, you might and copied me exactly, then you'll find that you can do it this way. If you have done yours a different size, this might be around where there is a wee bit of trial and error. So for me, I'm going to do a foundation double crochet in this first stitch. And then what I'm going to do is put 2 double crochets and make a V-stitch in the next one. And what we're essentially doing is, because our ribbing works in the same way as the bottom of the jumper, these cuffs work in the same way as that, we need to make sure that we've got an even number of stitches. So we're going to work to get that 36. So I've done that first one, I've done 2 in the next one, I'm going to just put 1 in the next V-stitch. I'm then going to put 2 in the next V-stitch. I'm then going to put 1 in the next V-stitch. I'm going to put 2 in the next V-stitch. I'm then going to put 1 in the next V-stitch. 2 in the next V-stitch. And as you can tell, I'm following this pattern all the way around. And if you're doing it in a different size, you might find that you can do, if you've done a smaller size, it might be that you actually need to just do 2 V-stitches and then 1 double stitch and drop a stitch there. It might be that you can do all your V-stitches and you've got the perfect 36 amount. It's going to be purely trial and error. And we're doing it with a 4mm hook, just so that we can, in essence, start to get those sort of tighter stitches and it brings it all together. Because our gauge is going to be a bit tighter and our stitches will be a bit smaller. So I've done 1 there, 2 there, so I'm going to do 1 in that one, 2 in the next one. And you might just have to sort of wing it, count it a bit, have a play around with it. There's no right or wrong reason. You could even decide that you want really wide cuffs. I mean, I don't know about you, I'm not someone that wants really wide cuffs, but that's a choice that you can make for your jumper. That is perfectly fine. I'm going to do 1 in the next one. And then 2 in the next one. But the most important thing to remember if you are doing decreases like this is that you want to end up with a total number of stitches that is an even number. The cuffed ribbing doesn't really work unless you've got an even number of stitches at the end. Done 1 there, 2 in the next one. 1 in the next one, 2 in the next one, and then I'm nearly at the end here. Now I've got 2 left, so I know that if I do 1 in there, it's going to be 2 in there. So let's do my 1 in that final one, and then I'm actually just going to count all my stitches all the way around to see how many I've got total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. I've just counted round and I've got to that 36, and I've realised that I actually only want 36 stitches total. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop out a stitch there, and to close it up a bit more, I'm just going to pop that last double crochet in my final one, and then I now know I've got 36 stitches all the way around, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first double crochet. And now we're going to start working our ribbing, and it works very much in the same way, the ribbing for the cuff, as it does the bottom of the jumper. So we're going to do a foundation front post double crochet, and then a back post double crochet, and then a front post double crochet, and then a back post double crochet, and then a front post double crochet, and then a back post double crochet. And you're going to keep doing that with all of your stitches. So if there's just one, you're just going around the one. And if you've got your two, like a V-stitch, make sure that you're working around them as separate individual stitches. So if you want to keep doing that, working all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the start of the round. And so I'm just finishing up my last couple of stitches now. And there we go. I've just done that last back post double crochet of that first round, and you can see it already starting to tighten up a little bit. And so I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first foundation front post double that we did. And then we're going to continue working in those front post double crochets and back post double crochets until your cuff is, well, basically as long as you want. Now for me, I think I'm going to go and do 7 or 8 rounds. I think I did 7 for the hem cuff at the bottom of the body. And so I think I want it to be a sort of similar width. So I'm going to go away and do that. And what I'll do is, if you just go away and do the same, keep working those front post and back post double crochets like we've done before. And I will join you when I have finished my cuff, and we will then go and move on to doing the neckline and the collar together. So I have now worked 7 rounds. I'm coming up and finishing my 7th round of those front post and back post double crochets to make the cuff of the sleeve. And so all I'm going to do is slip stitch into the top of that first foundation front post double crochet, and then fasten off my work, cut my wool. I like to leave a nice long tail. And there we go, you finish one of your sleeves. So go back and watch this section of the sleeve again so that you can go and recreate it for the other side, remembering to make note of how many rounds you did. I actually did 7 rounds for the cuff, like I said, and that was the same as I have done on the bottom for the bottom of the jumper. So pause the video here, go and do that, and I'm now going to work on the neck opening, and I'll show you that. So we are now going to work on the collar of our jumper. Now we're going to create what is called a rolled collar, and you'll find these on a lot of traditionally knit garments. What it does is it just creates a bit more stretch in the collar. I think they look a bit more professional and tidy, and it's a bit more comfortable around the neck as well, I've always found. So I'm going to show you how we do one of those. Now I've got this stitch marker in because it's the back of my jumper, and I always start my collars at the back of the jumper so that any seam or join is hidden. Sort of at the back. If you've got long hair especially, then that hides it. So all I've done is took my 4mm hook. We can cast aside the 4.5 now. I've popped a slip stitch on, and all I'm going to do is work a full round of front post double crochets. So I'm going to start just here towards the back of the centre, or the left of the centre, sorry. And to start with, I'm just doing a foundation front post double, like we've done a good few times when making the cuffs and the hem at the bottom. And then I'm going to just front post double crochet into every stitch all the way around. So I'm just doing a front post double crochet in there and into the next one. And the reason for doing this is that creates a bit of a flap, which makes it easier for us to sew down and tack down the collar at the end of it. So we'll keep going. I'm doing another front post double crochet here. Now, when we get to the corners, this is where we do a bit of a different stitch. We're going to do a front post double crochet 2 together, which sounds a bit more daunting than it actually is. Just hold my hands out the way. All we're going to do is yarn over, insert it around the first stitch of the corner, and pull that loop through. We're then going to insert the hook around the second stitch of the corner, yarn over and pull that through. So you'll actually have 4 loops on your hook now. Then all you're going to do is yarn through and pull through those first 3 loops. And then yarn over and pull through 2 like it's a standard double crochet. And all that means we've done is those 2 that are at the corner, we've essentially made them 1 stitch. And the reason for that is it just cinches everything in a little bit tighter and makes it look neater. So I'll do the next corner with you. So we'll keep crocheting along. A front post double there, front post double in the next one, 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 and the same again. And the same again. So we're just going to keep doing this all the way around. I've got 4 more until I get to that corner. Yarn over, pull through. There we are. 1 more. And then I'm just going to do my 2 together. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook under the first stitch of the corner, pull through a loop, and then insert my hook straight around the second stitch of the corner, pull through a loop, pull that yarn over and pull through 3 of those 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through those final 2 loops like a normal double crochet, and it creates 1 stitch around those 2 corner stitches, and it just tightens everything up. So if you want to keep working all the way around the collar, doing those front post double crochets, and at the corners those 2 together front post double crochets, and I will meet you back at the start where we'll talk through the making of the rest of the collar. So I'm just finishing up that last front post double crochet, and all I'm going to do now is slip stitch into the top of that foundation front post double that we did to start the round. And from here on out, we're going to work in exactly the same way as the cuffs and the hems and everything else we've done. So we're just going to do a foundation front post double crochet to start with. Bring up that loop by going all the way around the post of that stitch. And then we're going to do a back post double crochet. Now, because you've done a front post in the stitch before, this can be a little bit fiddly this first round, but just take your time, have a little bit of patience this first round, and you should be all right. So I do a front post there and going round and doing a back and a front and a back and a front, and then I've come to the corner here, so I'm going to do a back all the way around that corner and a front and a back, and just keep working those front post and back post double crochets all the way around, and I will join you at the end of this round where we'll slip stitch together, and then I'll talk about how we keep going. So I'm just finishing up my last 2 stitches. I've got a front post double crochet and a back post double crochet, and because of the stitch count at the start, you should find that no matter what, you actually end up with a back post double crochet. And if you don't, then just do 2 together. It's really not that much of a bother. So we're going to just slip stitch into the top of that first foundation front post that we did. And then we're going to continue working rounds of front post double crochet and back post double crochet until our jumper, or our jumper's collar, reaches the length that you would be happy to wear. Now, I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I think I'm probably going to do about 7 to start with, see what that looks and feels like, and then I will come back to you and talk you through what I'm going to do from there. So I have just now finished 7 rounds. So I've got that first round of the completely front post double crochets, and then I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've tried it on and I really like how the collar looks and the feel of it, but I want to make it, like I said, a rollover collar. So what I now need to do, and what you're going to do, is we're going to do an additional 7 rows. Now that might seem crazy and excessive when you're making it, but don't worry, because remember, we're going to fold it in on itself at the end. And so ultimately what will happen is the whole thing will, well, in essence, the whole thing will become this wide. So I've done 7 rows. If you want to do more, you want to do less, that's completely up to you. So I'm going to carry on and do 7 more rounds of my front post and back post double crochets. And then I'll come back to you once I've finished those, and I'll show you how we go about folding over the collar and tacking it down so that it's nice and neat and looks really clean and comfy. So I am now just finishing up my 14th round of front post and back post double crochets. Now you're probably looking at this collar thinking, Jack, this is not a turtleneck, and it is not a turtleneck jumper, but it will look like one if you do the full 14 rounds. Now remember, if you've tried it on as you go, it'll feel a bit odd, but what we're going to do is we're now going to essentially fold our collar down in on itself so that it ends up with a lovely rolled collar, and then it looks really comfortable. It's really snug around your neck, and it just looks and feels a bit more professional. So the way that we're going to do this is it's actually no sew. So first things first, we need to turn our entire jumper inside out. Now I'm working with a small tiny bit of wool that's left. So all I'm going to do is actually just pop that in through the top of my jumper, because it's basic yarn management. You've got to sort of make sure that you're working with it from the right side. So I'm going to turn my whole jumper inside out, and you can see here the top of the row that we did all of our front post double crochets in for that first round. And all we're going to do is slip stitch the top of our collar into that row. So I'm actually going to take my jumper and pop it upside down on my table so that you can see how we work this. So I've got my stitch that I was working where I slip stitched into that final front post double, foundation front post double. And all we're going to do is go into that same stitch that we slip stitched into. And then this is where you've just got to be a bit careful and concentrate. So here it was a front post double, but when you look at it from the back side, it's actually this gap here in the middle. And so all I'm going to do is take that, and if you can see, there's a gap in between every stitch that we've worked. And so all I'm going to do is follow that row down and slip stitch just in to the right of it. So I haven't fastened off my wool. I haven't done anything crazy. There we go. And then I'm going to just work into the next stitch along, into the top of that stitch. I'm going to slip stitch, look at where my gaps are. So I went in there before. I'm going to go into the next one along and slip stitch. And then I'm going to do the same thing again and slip stitch into the next space. And sometimes you might look at those gaps and think, that looks really far away. That can't be right. It will be, just trust yourself. So I've worked into that gap. So I'm looking at the next one along, which is here. So this is the only real round. You've done some lovely mindless crocheting if you've been just working around the body and the arms. And now you've just got to concentrate just to get this last finishing touch. The other thing I will say is, if you've got ends that need weaving in, I find it really handy, and I have done this, to weave in all of your ends before you start working this collar, this stitching for this collar. It just makes everything a bit more manageable. Imagine if I had all these ends floating around now, it would drive you insane. So I would, just before I start working this collar like this, maybe pause, weave in all your ends, because also there's nothing more satisfying than when you've just finished a garment, being able to fasten it off and try it on. So I'm just continuing to go round. I'm going into my next one along, and you'll find that at some point you will come up to the corner. So I think we're actually nearly there. Yes, I am. So with the corner, again, just be concentrating and making sure that we're just working. I can see where I've done it there, those 2 double crochet that have come together. So I'm going into the gap. And this won't be seen at all. So if you worry that you've maybe gone into the wrong gap or anything like that, don't panic too much, because just remember, it'll all be hidden lovely on the inside. So if you want to keep working those slip stitches all the way around, working into the top of that foundation double crochet, the foundation front post and foundation back post that we've been doing, and then slip stitching round the bottom of that row, and just keep working it nice and slowly and steady. Pause the video here and I'll come back to you when I've finished mine, and we'll see what it looks like. So I've been working my way all around the edge, and I will say that this is a slower process, this last round. You just want to take that time and that care to make sure you're going into the right little gap. And it's the last thing in theory you're going to be doing on your jumper. If you haven't weaved in all your ends yet, then you've got to do that. So you just, for me, I always just think that sometimes I get to the end of a garment and I find that I'm rushing a little bit, and then I make a mistake. And you come all this way, you've got all this way making this gorgeous jumper. Don't rush it at the last hurdle. So I am so nearly there. I'm just, there we go. I've got one more stitch to go into just here, and then there we are, and I'm just going to fasten off now. So I'm just going to do my good old-fashioned fasten off, which I'd like to do nice and tight. 2 chains, a nice long tail for making it easier to weave in. And then there we go, rolled collar neckline that'll be really comfy for when you wear your jumper. And now you have finished your Autumn Harvest Raglan. Hopefully you really enjoyed this pattern, and now you've got a lovely jumper to be able to wear as we come into the end of autumn and start of winter. If you've enjoyed this pattern, again, remember to just subscribe to my channel. It really means a lot to have your support. And as I said before, all the information is available on my Substack for free, including that schematic size chart and the information about the amount of wool. And there are written instructions there to go along and support the video if you want to go back and reference those at any point. Bye.